Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Saturn shifting to direct is going to change your life in so many ways you have never considered. And just by the fact that Saturn's going direct, it really does have an amazing effect on the economy and business. Saturn retrograde slows things down in a business sense. This is something I've always learned from astrology from the beginning of my studies. So doesn't matter if you're doing Western or Vedic, the planets will turn direct or retrograde on the same day. They're just in a different sign. And this is where I am doing Vedic sidereal astrology. So Saturn first came into Pisces. This was March 29th. Around in the year of 2025. So the end of last March, and we had all these major events happening with eclipses. It was dramatic, but Saturn is now turning directions, and on this day that it turns directions, going forward, no longer being retrograde, this is November 27th of this year, it is at 0 degrees. So when a planet changes from retrograde to direct or direct to retrograde, it basically sort of stops moving. I mean, the planets are always moving, don't get me wrong, but it comes to such a slow speed that it seems to sit on that degree marking for the entire month or more. So Saturn is stationing, turning from retrograde to direct at 0 degrees of Pisces. And here's what I do want you to know. If you have any planets around 0 degrees of Pisces or 0 degrees of Virgo, you're going to feel this more than most people because it is staying there for an ungodly amount of time that really makes you feel exhausted, tired, and blocked. Saturn will make you feel these things, absolutely. But all at the same time, Saturn makes us work harder. Now, I never said Saturn was a lot of fun, but it does make us work harder. And more than anything that I always want everyone to know, Saturn does deal with our karma. You get what you put out. So if you've been working hard, Saturn will give your rewards. But if you haven't, then you're going to have to pay the price. That's Saturn. But here is what is extra special about this time. About this time towards the end of November when Saturn is stationing, it will be in an exact trine, which is 120 degrees. The trinal aspect connects planets. Amazingly, I don't care if you're doing sidereal Vedic astrology or Western, the trinal aspect connects planets. Actually, in Naughty astrology, they look at Saturn's trine as its special 100% empower aspect. So Saturn is in a perfect trine to Jupiter, and they stay that way the whole month of November or more. So Jupiter is turning where it is going retrograde, but Saturn is turning where it's going direct. It's so interesting that these two planets change their direction around the same time, but they're standing still. In other words, meaning this aspect of their trine lasts for so much longer than it normally would. And this is powerful, and this is healing, and this is good. Because wherever Jupiter and Saturn trine, and or station, it's very meaningful if you have any planets there. So here's what I'm asking. If you have any planets, once again at that 0 degree marking, look out. Even though Saturn always represents hardship, responsibility, and difficulties, and endings many times, you're in luck. You dodged the bullet. Why? Because Jupiter's aspecting that same position. And even though at first you might feel a little exhausted, something good comes out of it for you. Now, let me remind you something else. If you want to know where your planets are, if this major aspect is affecting you personally, then you're going to have to check out my Galactic Planner because it will tell you this. Go to galacticplanner.com. What the planner does is it takes your birth chart, your time, your place, everything, and calculates it for you, and it will tell you if this aspect is affecting you, which is a huge big deal, what's happening in the sky. It truly is. And you're going to want to find out if these degree markings are relevant in your chart. So basically, it's going to be, if I could say, 0 degrees of Scorpio. Saturn will be trining that. Or 0 degrees of Cancer. Saturn will be trining that, and that's where Jupiter is. As well as 0 degrees of Pisces. Look out, you're in luck instead of being beat up. But I will tell you this, at first, you're going through a difficult time because it's Saturn, but something wonderful comes out of it. You get your just rewards. It's going to be remarkable. So talking about Saturn being in the sign of Pisces. Now, as I said, it came into Pisces initially March 29th of 2025. It will be there till its final leaving of Pisces. I know there's some portions where it kind of goes retrograde back in and out before this date, but by the time Saturn is finished with being in Pisces, it'll be around February 23rd of 2028. Remember that Saturn stays in a sign for approximately 2.5 years. And what I find is so interesting about this Saturn is it's going to back up to 0 degrees of Pisces, but then it's going to come back up by around February 20th to conjoin Neptune again. Saturn and Neptune were the same degree, not exactly conjunct by second or minute, but the same degree between the months of June, July, and August. And that definitely had so much to do with the floods, especially the floods that happened in Texas. Oh my God, it was ferocious. But there were floods all over the world. It's just, it hit home here in Texas, let me tell you. The floods that affected the camp in Kerrville. And another thing that we made note of was the eclipses, how they crossed over, X'd the mark of Kerrville, Texas. But a lot of this had to do with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because it will deal with floods. Now, February 20th, Saturn and Neptune will come back and conjoin exactly to the second at 6 degrees of Pisces. June, July, August, they were conjunct at 7 degrees of Pisces. Now, the 6 degrees is where they're coming back. And this is the degree marking of the fixed star sheet, which is the star of sorrow and floods, things happening with floods and water. We can expect things of this nature to happen again. Catastrophic events with floods and water that bring sorrow. Now, Neptune and Saturn, once again, rule oil and gas. And I'm getting that there's going to be some big war or exchanges through, I don't know if it deals with tariffs or war, but with fuel, oil and gas. This is going to be ramped up around this time of February, mark my words. Saturn actually rules, in mundane astrology, crude oil. It rules what is underneath the ground, and it's black. Guess what that is? Crude oil or coal. Yes. And Neptune rules gas, and Neptune rules fuel, such as gasoline. So you're going to see oil prices go crazy around this time. And there will be blockages and things going on concerning oil and gas. But the other thing that Neptune and Saturn together also mean is deception, illusion. Neptune means fog. You can't see things clearly. So consequently, there can be some issues around major fogs, maybe even with airlines trying to see, and they can have some problems. But more than anything, what I see this indicating is deception, illusion in the media. And this has been going on for so long, and really an eternity. But the media will put out what they want you to believe, and they repeat it over and over and over again until you believe it. They control our minds. But let me tell you something about the last time that Saturn was in Pisces, which it was actually in Pisces from 1995 to 1998. And one of the big events that happened in 1997 was Heaven's Gate. Marshall Applewhite, I believe his name was, dealt with Heaven's Gate. And what he essentially did was he convinced people that if they came together and committed suicide together, that they would get on the tail of a comet in heaven. I think it was, I don't know if it was Halley's Comet at the time or Hale-Bopp, but it was a comet. And yes, a number of very intelligent people participated in this mass suicide. How do you convince people of something this outrageous? It happened. And so, again, this deals with cults. There are many cults going on around the world. We just don't think of them as cults. And I think the mass media control of our minds has a little bit to do with cultish stuff going on. And maybe things of the past of major cults will come into awareness. But let me tell you something. When somebody's been in a cult their entire life and they start to discover that what they were led to believe their entire life is wrong, they go through extreme trauma. And some of them even go insane. It is really tough for people to handle that they've been lied to their whole life, and their whole life was lived through this belief, and to discover it's wrong is devastating for people. That's what essentially is kind of happening with the Saturn being in Pisces, because Pisces is the sign that deals with beliefs. When we entered into the age of Pisces, that's when all the churches were built. That was the onset 2,000 years ago of the birth of Christ. And religions and beliefs, the churches, the synagogues, the temples were all built based on people's religious beliefs. And let me tell you, there's going to be more of this coming up about beliefs and religion. And you got to know, so many wars were fought over this. Is it all just what we imagine in our heads with our beliefs that makes our world what it is? It's a big question. And the answer is yes to a certain degree. So what I'm trying to tell you is that Saturn, also being in the sign of Pisces, relates to cults, but being conjunct Neptune puts it over the top. It's about so many cults. And now Saturn is slowing down and stationing to turn direct. It empowers what Saturn is all about. And what is Saturn? Reality. What is reality? A lot of people don't know. Probably most of us. Why are we here? You know, you wonder. Who told us? We have all these sciences that try to explain it to us. But do we really know what's beyond this world, beyond our lives? Yes, a lot of people have gone there, come back to tell their stories, but let me just say, no one's gone there and stayed there and came back. And we have all sorts of religions and beliefs that help us try to understand and get a handle on what happens. But no one really knows. Really knows. I do know one thing from all of my spiritual experiences. I know we do not die. I've had too much contact with people that were close to me that passed on. But what world is really real? Is it this world or the other world? Saturn is reality. Saturn can teach us the truth. And while Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, we will uncover a lot of truths that we didn't know about. That is for certain. And I keep talking about the aliens. The aliens are real. And a lot of people think there's these asteroids that are coming about, or, you know, these slow-moving crafts that are aliens. Let me tell you, the aliens are so far advanced technologically. They don't just come along with something where we can gauge it. They know how to move instantaneously. That's the only way that they can go from other galaxies to, and they do it probably in an instant. They know. They are so far advanced. But I will say that a lot of these comets and things coming into our solar systems are simply signs telling us what we need to wake up to. That's what it's all about. So Saturn's going to wake us up, because Saturn is reality. Neptune is delusion, so we're waking up from a lot of old delusions from the past. But as Saturn stations to turn direct, all of what Saturn's about is about to come into our awareness and our consciousness. So get grounded, get real. Be aware that some of your thoughts and beliefs will change. But what will come into our being will be the reality and more of the truth of what is true. So with that, I think I'll close. Remember, if you'd like to learn more about me, you can go to my website, galacticcenter.org, sign up for my free newsletter, and get all of this astrological news delivered to your email every week, free. As well as the Galactic Planner. You've got to try it. We have been improving it over and over. It is the best tool out there for guidance through the stars. And last but not least, if you want to study with me, go to my university, University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.